Hello and welcome to the long-awaited return of the Record Rangers podcast. I'm Scott McDermott. I'm joined by Andy Newport as we discuss all things Rangers. Start of a new era at Ibrox, American owners, new gaffer, Russell Martin, and surely some more signings on the way. This will be informal, off the cuff, hopefully give a wee bit of insight into the club and what's happening. Andy, I feel as if I've spoke to you more than me and Mrs. this summer. How's things? What's been happening?
Try to survive in this heat and get the fan on full blare there. Although it's weird because the kids are bouncing off the walls. It's last time off school now, but you can't even get them outside because it's raining every 2 minutes. So it's and we've not even there's a game at the weekend. Scott, we've not even been away on my holidays yet. I mean, what's this all about?
Just about to say, I mean, we can't handle this heat. I'm going to Turkey in 2 weeks where it's about 37 degrees. I mean, I'm just going to wilt, basically.
Well, I'm going there in 3 weeks, so not that I'm counting the minutes, the hours and the seconds down to take off, but I
know, it's just not even been on holiday and we're back at Ibrox for a game. I mean, how does that happen?
No.
No bad. Still kind of strange. You don't know what to do with yourself on a Saturday, don't you? When games, you get a Saturday off in the summer and you're left twiddling your thumbs, running about with the kids. But no, it's been fine. I'm looking forward to getting back into it properly.
So I mean, have you been watching any of this Club World Cup nonsense that's been on?
You know what? I've tried to get into it. I tried to get into it at the start because there was no football, and I thought, this will be my football fix. But see, try to get into it on DAZN and stuff. Some of the games are Channel 5, some are DAZN. Kick-off times aren't great. Some of the opening games weren't great either.
Just lack of atmosphere at all these grounds. It just seems so false for me. I mean, it really is. Going back to those COVID days where if you didn't have that proper atmosphere at a game, it just kind of feels a bit. It's hard to get in. I'm not really bought into it at all, must admit.
Players are shattered as well. You're looking at some of the PSG players, Champions League final and then on to Nations League and straight into Club World Cup. I mean, I think it's going to affect these teams this season.
Definitely.
I mean, I know Man City been papped out, obviously, but if they'd have went to the final of that, I think that would have been detrimental to their kind of title challenge, the Premier League. You think Liverpool over the whole summer? Do you know what I mean? Would be the main challengers. So
I know there's a lot of fun about it, but I just can't imagine most of these clubs are going to enjoy this. I mean, I'm not a great fan of Gianni Infantino, so I can only hope that this just falls on its backside. To be frank, it's we all love watching a game of football, but for me, it's just too much. So
unless Rangers somehow get in it, we'll be dying to go.
Tell us that we were Rangers were set to get into it.
Was there no talk that Rangers were in it? Was it Gav that wrote that story?
Just like Gavin
okay. Exactly. Anyway, breaking news Rangers-wise, before we get into the whole summer. It looks this morning, obviously, reports coming out for Leeds that Rangers are in for Joe Rothwell, centre mid, 30-year-old. Russell Martin had him at Southampton and loan for Bournemouth. Part of the Leeds team last season that got promoted to the Premier League. What's your thoughts?
I just had a quick look at him. I haven't seen much of Leeds last season, but I can see the appeal in him. He's a sort of ball-carrying centre midfielder, sort of strong, sort of those sort of one-on-one positions. I suppose if you're going to be this, possession-dominant, possession-heavy team that we expect Russell Martin, that'll be the sort of style he wants to implement at Ibrox. It's all very well and good having lots of the ball and passing for fun, but at some point you have to be able to go past somebody. You have to be able to break a line and puncture defences. So I having looked at him and looked at a few of his highlight clips, it seems to me that's the type of player that they're looking at there. As you say, had a spell. I think it was only 6 months or so at Southampton. The year they get promoted under Russell Martin, so the manager obviously does know him knows his strengths, we're comfortable with him. So it looks like an easy fit. It's just about getting him up here. I know it'll be another player that's linked with the club that's coming in from England, especially the Championship. There's been, I don't know if you've seen that, Scott, there has been a few murmurs of discontent from fans that I've seen online, question whether or not the English market is really the place to go, given some of the failures that the club's had sort of shot them down there. I'm thinking, like a Kieran Dowell or a Ben Davies, but for me, I think that's too easy to just slap a broad brush on that and say, all right, we've had a couple of bad experiences down there, we can't go back down there. I think you have to, everything has to be seen on a case-by-case basis. If Russell Martin knows Joe Rothwell and thinks he's the right fit and has obviously been up here for a week or two now, speaking to the players, watching the players, if he thinks that's a gap in his midfield that can be filled by this guy, then you've got to trust his judgment.
The English market is difficult, right? And I understand punters saying why they going down there, and maybe people looking at it being a bit lazy. He's ex-Southampton, he's ex-Leeds, obviously, with the Leeds link up. But it's a fine balance, because at the same time, we're all saying Rangers haven't got time and Russell Martin's not going to get time. He's got to hit the ground running. So in that sense, he probably needs some players that he knows and knows his style, knows his management style, his playing style. Will immediately buy into what he's trying to do. So it's a kind of fine balancing act. Obviously, Max Aarons has come in, who he knows for Norwich. Joe Rothwell looks if he's going to come in again, somebody that he knows. Connor Cody might be the next one. Again, although he's not had him as a player, he's had teams playing against him. I think he's tried to sign him in the past. So he is familiar with these guys, and I don't think it's a bad thing to get some players like that run about you as a new manager, especially when you need to start fast and there's a lot of pressure. I think Rothwell, I think he would be a decent signing. I've actually seen him or watched him a few times, and remember watching him for Blackburn a few years ago where he really kind of came to the fore, and he was outstanding. Technically really good, but also tenacious. A really good all-round centre mid. Who always wants to play forward, always wants to be positive, playing in the front foot. Probably ideal for Russell Martin's kind of style in terms of pressing high up the pitch. He's not a sitting midfielder. He's very much like a kind of box to box, old fashioned number 8. For me, who's only seen him a few times, but I think Rangers need a wee bit of experience in midfield. When you think you're asking Diomande, Barron, for instance, as your 3, all very young, good players in their own right, but very young. So I think at 30, Rothwell's probably coming into he's probably at his kind of peak years now as a centre mid. And he did really well last season by all accounts. I think I'm right in saying 28, 90 minutes he played for Leeds as they get promoted to
39 appearances last year on a team that won the Championship, which is
decent.
Yeah,
that's very decent.
I mean, for me, just in terms of the English market thing, I mean, the problem with shopping down there is that players have got a premium down there. There's so much money awash in English football, even at that sort of second tier level, that you have to pay sort of top dollar a lot of time, even for very sort of average players with the best built in the world. So that is a problem. It's trying to make sure that the money you are spending down there, if you do have to spend big, then you're getting a reasonable return on it. But as you say,
you need to be sure.
But nobody will know better in terms of this Rothwell signing than Russell Martin. As you say, he's worked with him. He knows his character. He knows his strengths. He'll know his weaknesses. He'll know whether or not whatever kind of value they're getting for him is going to be worthwhile. So I think it's probably what you would class as a low risk signing in that sense.
Yeah.
If everybody says, right, okay, you can get better money for value for money abroad, obviously, just in terms of some of the other targets they're looking for, is it Turgeman, obviously from Israel, but there's so many other factors to take into consideration. Then the language, just the cultural shift, the climate, all those things that take players time to trust. We've seen it last year with Hamza Gamani. It really took him to win mid-November before he was sort of settled in and able to make an impact. So I think, yeah, you get value for money, but there's more risks attached to it. This, for me, seems like a fairly low-risk signing. Obviously, he needs to come up and needs to perform, he needs to play at the level he had. As you say, we've seen a lot of players that have maybe come up from England and thinking they're going to scoosh it up here and found out that it's not as easy as they thought it might be. But listen, I'm sure Russell Martin, as I say, having worked with him, will know him inside out and will believe that this is a deal worth pursuing.
You're talking about time there, Andy, right? I mean, what do you make of the summer in general? I mean, we were there the day it was announced, or it was ratified at the EGM. Andrew Kavanagh and Parag Marathi coming in, the big US takeover. We were lucky enough we got to sit down with both of them, ask them some questions, came across very impressively, as did Russell Martin, to be fair, at his unveiling. But what's your general kind of, I mean, I must admit, I thought there'd be more signings in by now. I think fans have got a right to be slightly concerned at this stage, 3 weeks before play Panathinaikos in a Champions League qualifier. And so far, Max Aarons is the only guy in the door, a loan signing from Bournemouth. I suppose the big question is, or the question I'm asking myself is, as much as they came across well, and whether it was the owners, the manager, or even Kevin Thelwell, they said the right things in terms of knowing what the expectation is, knowing what's required. But at this stage, do you think they're underestimating it? Because time is against them, and we know that if it's a sticky start for Rangers, the previous couple of managers have got off to bad starts, haven't been able to recover from it, and have paid the ultimate price. So, I mean, the Rangers, the new owners, and Kevin Thelwell need to get a move on here with signings. What's your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I do. I mean, I definitely do think they need to get a move on. I definitely think time is, there's not a second to be wasted. They really needed, 5-6 signings in the door, if not yesterday, the week before.
And players out.
Yeah, exactly. But I just think this is the reality of when you're doing something as major as, club takeover and then appointing a new manager. These things do take time. I know there was some hold-ups. They would have liked it to have been done earlier. That's just the way things go. Anybody who's ever bought a house will know the sort of unexpected sort of hurdles that can crop up in that kind of process. So imagine buying a football club, it's that times 10. It's unfortunate, but it's just the reality of it. And I think now, ideally, I think they would have had this done certainly sort of late March, early April, and given themselves, 2 or 3 months to get the ducks in a row transfer-wise. They've not been able to do that. I spoke to Issam Charai this week, and he was speaking about. I asked him if he was concerned about the just how little transfer business. Issam Charai obviously says Luke Clement's old assistant manager just left the club last month to take over at Westerlo in Belgium. He made clear, listen, that everyone knows when that first Champions League qualifier is. It's been penciled in and inked in the calendar for months and months. They knew what the start date of the season was. But the fact is that when you've got a takeover and having to appoint a new manager and the length of time those processes take, it's just an unfortunate delays. Yeah, I mean, we've spoken even in Hotline Live about the situation at Celtic when Ange Postecoglou came in. I think it was the middle of July before they really started making their first substantial moves in the transfer market. But the difference with that was that they weren't playing Champions League qualifiers, if I remember. I think they were playing Europa League that season. That doesn't come with quite the same jeopardy. When you're having to go to Greece and play in a pretty hostile atmosphere, and we were told 38-degree conditions potentially at 8 o'clock at night. I mean, this is pretty as nightmare a tie as Rangers could have hoped for in the second qualifying round. So
I'm going to Turkey and holiday, then straight to Athens. You're talking about the temperatures. I'll need to be getting into ice baths when I try and recover. I'll be like a bleach beating when I come back.
A couple of VFSs will sort you out, man. No doubt. Listen, I think Rangers fans have got concernless. There's still time. It's not so much about getting the bodies in the door. You see, there's 2 weeks. I mean, Rangers could go and sign 4 or 5 guys in a matter of days if they really wanted to push the boat out. It's more about getting them into that Rothwell Martin philosophy. And I mean, as things stand, I mean, I still think they've got a framework of a squad there that could potentially get the job done. I mean, if you're talking about, but it would be absolutely key that nobody leaves. Certainly, an Agamani or a Dessers. I wrote a column last week saying I don't think that they can afford to let Agamani leave before that first Champions League qualifier. I think the same goes with Dessers. I think if you're getting into that game with, say a Danilo up front or something, a Danilo who's not really shown any sort of sign of life for a good 6 months, I think that would be a huge concern. I think they have to try and keep something as strong a squad together before they start letting these guys go. You're talking about Raskin or Diamandi. I don't think there's any potential for letting these guys go before. Certainly, obviously we know that they need to get through at least one round from these qualifiers at the very least to guarantee themselves some kind of group stage football. So I think they've got to. It's about timing. As much as getting guys in, it's also about when they choose to let guys leave. That's going to be the crux of the matter.
The thing is, Andy, I totally understand the need for patience and time. Right, we all get it. There's a new manager in with a new style. It's a total new regime. It's a new sporting director. I think we all get it. We all understand this is going to take time. You don't just ship out 10 guys and bring in 10 or 12 in the space of a couple of weeks. It's a very difficult job. As I say, I think we all appreciate that. But the bottom line is that Kevin Thelwell and Russell Martin, they can't come out and say, as they have done, we understand the job, we need to win. We need to start well, we need to win early, we need to match Celtic, we need to compete for the title. You can't say that, but then if it doesn't go well in the first kind of 6 weeks, then say, well, listen, lads, this is going to take time, you need to stick with us. That's not the way it works in Glasgow. No, you just don't get that time. I mean, we were laughing the other night on Hotline Live, me and Keith Jackson were on, saying, like, in what other city in the world, is there a reaction like there was the other day to a closed doors friendly defeat to a Welsh team right in pre-season? That's just Rangers. That's the old firm. And I tell you what, it'll crank up again on Sunday. They play Club Brugge in a friendly. To me, it looks as if they're pretty ill prepared even for that game in terms of players coming back. No guys who are there that are surplus to requirements. No enough new bodies in as yet. If they lose on Sunday, a friendly or no friendly, it will suddenly crank up a wee bit more ahead of the Panathinaikos game in a few weeks. And I think Russell Martin will do a really good job, and I like him. And I've maybe kind of changed my tune a wee bit initially when he was mentioned for the job. I wasn't sure. But having spoken to him, obviously, at the press conference and talked to other people who know him, I actually think he'll be a really good appointment. And he does need time. But as I say, if that's the case, see if it doesn't go well initially and the fans are right on his back and right on the team's back, then the club and the new ownership are going to need to be strong, because whether we like it or no, the previous couple of managers, as I say, have got off to a bad start, more recovered, and they've ended up getting the sack, and the whole cycle just starts again.
I think that's where the new regime are going to be different from the previous board. One, I know the previous board were spread across the world, but they were all Rangers fans. They all connections back to Glasgow. They all would have had family, friends living here, on the phone to them every 2 minutes when things weren't going well. Say like John Bennett.
Yeah.
Parks obviously living in Glasgow would have been getting in the ear every minute of every day, every time they stepped out of the house. If they lose a bad game, if they go up to a bad start in the league, lose a European qualifier, there's no escaping that. Whereas I think the new board, and even the fact that obviously, as you're saying there, Scott, we sat down with Andrew Kavanagh and Parag Marathi a couple of weeks back, and they made it. They're going to be regular faces. Are going to be, you'll see them a lot at Ibrox, but they're not going to be here every single game. They're not going to be in the city every single week. They are going to have that distance, and they also made clear every decision they make, it's going to be evidence-based. They're not going to be knee-jerk. They're not going to be reacting to the whims and the pressure or the support, the mood swings that you get with a passionate support like the Rangers faithful are. One bad game. We've all seen it. We've seen a team getting booed off one week, and then the next week they win a big European game and they're back play for the month. They're not going to be. Well, they're going to try their best. That's maybe a better way of putting it. They're going to try their best to be immune to that. They're going to make decisions level-headed. They're going to make them rationally. They're going to take the heat out of any of these kind of calls. So I would expect, even if Rangers do get off to a bad start, and let's be honest, there's every possibility of that, just given the preparations. And again, that's no fault of Russell Martin. That's just the position. Even the new regime, it's just been unfortunate the way things have gone. Yeah, they would like to have been further along the road right now. But I think they will realise they'll have learnt their lessons from the previous regime. What we're talking about. There's 20 managers in 150 years, 3 years Rangers history. They went through 4 and 4 years, basically. So I think that they'll realise that if you want out of that rinse and repeat cycle, I think was a phrase used by John Bennett back in the day. If you want out of that, then you have to back your manager, even through the tough times. And listen, there might be some tough times, there might be some pain ahead, there might be some teething trouble. I think, I've said all along, I think they get a year's grace. I think, I don't think the sports will accept a meeting.
That's 5 in a row for Celtic then, is that you getting it up?
Well, what is the alternative? You sack Russell Martin halfway through this season, you're starting again next summer. And again, Russell Martin, the type of football he plays, is going to have to sign some very specific players for that type of brand of football. You bring in somebody else who has a different philosophy potentially, then you have to rip it up and start again. At some point, a Rangers board are just going to have to, stick by a manager through thick and thin until he gets it right. There's no other alternative because, okay, you say that Celtic on 5 in a row, but if they rip it up again halfway through this season, then you're looking at Celtic at 6 in a row. So I think that's why at some point...
I totally agree, but I suppose the alternative, and I know it's difficult, but what I'm trying to say is the alternative was they need to start this season fast. So that means by now, and I know it's hard, and it's no fault of Russell Martin at all. It's probably more aimed at, I suppose, Kevin Thelwell and Patrick Stewart in terms of, I think there had to be more movement by now. I mean, we're going to get onto this, but I mean, you think of the players that are going out. I mean, Rangers have, the transfer talk in the last few days have been players leaving Rangers, but not just that, players who you would actually want to keep. Dessers, Egaman, Raskin, Diomande, you'd maybe accept that you sell one of them for a big profit because that's part of the player trading model. We all know that, right? That's where you want to get to as a club. But all the talk is about players who you would have actually probably rather have kept. I reckon, I mean, I've not counted them, but there must be 9 or 10 when you think of Proper, Yilmaz, Dowell, Cifuentes,
Matondo,
Danilo, Matondo, McCausland,
Davies, yeah. I mean, these guys are all. This is what the new board are having to come in. I mean, they were all, as I say, when we spoke to them, they were at pains not to criticise the people that they bought the club from, but their job now is to come in and fix the mess that's been left by the previous board. I mean, you're talking about guys on eye-watering contracts that have, literally provided next to nothing in terms of value. I mean, like, as I say, Matondo led to believe he's on an eye-watering wage, like £20,000 plus, maybe closer to 30,000 a week. Ben Davies the same. I mean, the guys that have, failed, literally failed to achieve at Rangers, but are on ridiculous sums of money. The decision to give these guys contracts, we're going back to, Gio Van Bronckhorst era, the Michael Beale era. Obviously things get the belts get tightened under Philippe Clement, but again, there's guys there that just haven't provided the kind of performance levels that Rangers are looking for, getting rid of these guys is going to be so tough. You know, who's going to want to go and give Rabbi Matondo a deal or buy him on his current wage level? What evidence is there to say he justifies that? Not just performance level, fitness wise. You know, he's perennially injured. So getting rid of these guys is hugely difficult because, and we saw last year, in order to get some of these guys off the wage bill, Rangers ended up having to, whatever money they brought in terms of transfer sales, they had to basically just hand them straight back. And that's why you get this much talked about £800,000 for 5 players last year. It was because any transfer money they made, they were having to turn around and go, right, boys, you take most of it just to get rid of them. So it's difficult. And again, that's going to be one of the big issues this summer.
But by the same token, and I take your point, but I suppose fans are looking at it and thinking, right, okay, but I mean, Birmingham have made it pretty clear that they want Ben Davies after he was brilliant for them in the Championship by all accounts League One last season. And getting them up to the Championship. No, we're led to believe Robin Proper. It's the Dutch club are saying they're ready to take him back, and they see a deal can happen. So I just wonder why these things haven't happened more quickly. Do you know what I mean? To try and get these guys out, and it might create space to get others in.
I mean, certainly those kind of deals are obviously they're done in a case-by-case basis. For everything like Proper, the mood music seems to be that he isn't quite ready to give up on Rangers yet. Wanted to see what Russell Martin had in mind for him. You're in a very.
I think the Rangers fans have given up on him.
In terms of like a ball playing aspect, I mean, I think he could work for a Russell Martin team, but in the day, we've seen defensively that's where, and that's his major flaw as a centre back, because he can't really defend, especially the balls in the air.
He's not got enough pace. He's not got enough pace either. And see if you're going back to play high up the pitch, and best teams, you need to have pace come back the way. I don't see how he's going to fit into that system.
But in terms of, we're talking about, I'm sure we're just about to go into the likes of Gamani and Dessers. I mean, I think it should be encouraging for the Rangers supporters that the board aren't being rolled over in terms of being lowballed for guys. Cyril Dessers. There's no need to sell him in the cheap when he scored 50. Yeah, we all know the erraticisms to his game, how at times he can be unreliable. But he scored, 51 goals in 2 seasons. Rangers have a right to demand what they think is their valuation and not sell a penny short of it. And it's the same with Gamani, obviously, the interest for Leo. The trouble would be is that if Rangers believe that, or feel that they have to, the new regime feel that they have to sell 1 or 2 of these guys in order to give themselves the spending power this summer, they have to be able to get it at some stage, because you can't. Agamani's a bit different because they've still got 4 years left of his contract. Dessers, I think, maybe 2 years left, but at some stage, you don't want to be in that position you were in with Kent Morelos, where you miss the boat, you don't get anything at all. Listen, it's a long time to go, especially even just in the window, never mind their contracts. But I think Rangers have got every right to stand firm in the valuations that they've got. Everyone, we keep going through this roundabout with supporters and the valuations. I mean, I think you and I, in terms of Nico Raskin, are both written that they might not get, the club might not get the kind of bids that fans expect. I think that's right in that sense, because I don't think certain players at the team have been consistent enough to be getting the kind of top dollar that we've seen previously.
Yeah.
But I think the club will get every right to, if they've got a fee in mind, to stand firm in that and go and try and do what Celtic have done, and which is to set a benchmark of what is our selling price, and it makes future negotiations so much easier. You're not going to get these clubs coming and trying to, as I say, lowball you. If Rangers stand firm this window and say, listen, we've got a premium that we are setting for our players, and we're not going to go a penny shy of it, then you're not going to get those sort of tire kickers coming in future. They're only going to be serious bidders. So I think it's right for them to set their stall out in that sense. But if they are reliant on this kind of transfer fees coming in, then at some point they will have to do some kind of business.
if Dessers and Eagleman do go, I mean, there's obviously a lot of talk about AEK Athens and Leo now. Eagleman, that seems to be getting closer. I mean, it's good money in for Rangers, but I mean, how short is it going to leave them when firepower getting into these, or getting into the Champions League games? Now, I know there's still 3 weeks to go. They've been linked with Turgeman, linked with Freegan, the Croatian striker. I mean, they're going to need to have guys lined up, aren't they, to replace him? I mean, I don't know about you. I mean, Turgeman's the one I really like the look of in terms of his profile. No, again, you're going on clips. No, you've no seen him, live, but you're going on what you're watching online. But he looks like he would fit the bill for Russell Martin in terms of what he's looking for in a striker, and just in terms of his age, in terms of his profile, the type of signing for the money that they're talking about in a market that isn't one of the markets where the prices are crazy. Obviously, he does tick a lot of boxes. I mean, surely if Dessers and Eagleman were to go, or even if one of them was to go this week, for instance, they would need to get moving on that, wouldn't they? Would you expect Turgeman to come in, or at least somebody to come in right away?
I can't imagine that they're selling this. It was one of the frontline strikers this month before the Panathinaikos games without somebody else literally ready to the drop of a button. I just think that would be crazy for them to do it. Yeah. I mean, all the talk is, I think Scott Burns that we work with, our transfer guru, the Daily Record, is saying that the Owen Beck deal, Rangers are really interested in him, ready to go with that, but won't be pushing the button on that until certainly likely be Radvan Yilmaz gets moved on. They just can't afford to be carrying three left backs with no guarantee that they're getting one of them off the wage bill. So I would think that they have to have somebody else lined up. I mean, it'd be crazy for them, as you say. I think they're there or thereabouts in terms of having a starting 11 that could potentially maybe get through this Panathinaikos game. If you're 10 guys,
you're really confident there, you're filling it.
I mean, it's
optimism.
I mean, it's just. I think they've got the bare bones of a team there, just with the players that they've got. Added in, you're talking about Aaron's coming in at right back, maybe Tavernier going to centre back, Suter, Yefty at left back. As you say, the midfield three that you spoke about. I mean, they're still so light up front, though. I mean, that is the real area of concern. I mean, you're probably looking at the season starting with Sling Stand,
Cortez, Danilo, and McCausland up front.
I mean, like Cortez, I mean, it's just such an. I mean, I have no idea. He's been here for a year and a half, and I still have no idea if there's a player there or not. I've seen so little of him.
I think there might be, I think there might
be. But then I'm going back to, he looked bright when he first came over, but that's 4 or 5 games, as I say, 18 months ago. I mean, and the little that we've seen him since, I mean, I know he's been coming back with repeated injuries and he's been well short of fitness both times, but there's been not much steam there. So again, that's a major question mark in this lineup, just where he fits in there. So there's a lot of work to be done, but I think if they can keep an Igamani and Dessers for these first games, if they can hold off any negotiations until that point, and listen, the bidding clubs might not fancy that. They've got their own seasons to prepare for. They might say, no, we want them in pronto. If not, we're walking away and looking elsewhere. I think that's what the talk is with IUK, that if they can't get a deal done, certainly this week, then they might be prepared to sort of look elsewhere. I think if Rangers can keep them for that first game, they have at least a starting 11 that they can be reasonably confident of being competitive. But I say that's not anywhere near the sort of situation Rangers fans would want to be in at this point.
I think just talking about Cortez, we were forgetting about Bayrami, obviously, who's another one whose future's uncertain, cost him $3.5 million. You're not sure whether he's going to be there or not. I suppose he could play in that attacking lineup. I think there might be something in Cortez. I mean, I'm maybe being over optimistic for Rangers supporters. I don't know. I seen signs when he first came in, and I know, as you say, it was a long time ago. But I quite liked what I was watching. Those first few games. I remember that home game against Hearts. I'm sure you were there. I think Diomande and Cortez scored that day. Two cracking goals. It was like new signings, and there was a real air of kind of positivity about them at that point. And I know injuries have totally derailed them and curtailed his progress, but I think a full proper pre-season new manager who likes playing with wide men, likes them to stay high by all accounts and go at fullbacks. I think Cortez might actually come up with something this season. But finally, I mean, we're obviously going to the Ibrox on Sunday, as we mentioned before, for the Bruges game. As I say, it feels from the outside like they're totally kind of ill prepared for it. We're not sure what the crowd's going to be like. What are you expecting for Sunday? I mean, do they need to produce a performance? Do they need to at least? I think they at least, whatever team goes out there, and it could be, as we've just said, I mean, it could be an absolute threadbare team that goes out that might look totally different in 3 weeks' time. But already, even though Russell Martin's only been in training a couple of weeks, do they need to show wee signs of what they're going to try and do this season?
Listen, I mean, you also referenced the TNS every weekend. From all accounts, the team there was very much on the scratch side, and much of that.
Young boys,
kids. Obviously, the guys that have been away on international duty only came back Monday, we believe. Obviously, they were given a little bit extra time off.
So did they play on Sunday, Andy? Do you think, if they've only been back? I mean, did they go straight into a game?
I mean, I think most teams will do a week's worth of training, and
yeah,
we're only talking about. I mean, nobody's played 90 minutes. They'll be getting.
Oh, I know.
They'll be getting. Imagine the guys come back with an international break. Maybe see them in the second half an hour run out or something like that. But listen, I would expect to see at the very least the frame of the way that Russell Martin wants to play this passing movement. And you and I both were texting last week when we watched the sort of clips, the training clips that the club put out, and you could see that there was a real emphasis on moving the ball quick.
Yeah, definitely.
1 touch, 2 touch, plenty of movement off the ball, and making the ball do all the running for them. So I would expect to see signs of that, but I think that has to come with the heavy caveat that this is 2 weeks into pre-season training. The guys will have been doing loads of sessions. I mean, anybody who's seen the pictures of Danilo blowing out his backside and all this, these guys are going to be knackered. I mean, I remember speaking to Philippe Clement last year when he worked them hard in pre-season, and there was a couple of pre-season games that didn't quite go to plan, or it was even maybe in January as well. We went to La Manga with them. They played against Hertha Berlin, and it was a really sort of leggy performance on a heavy, rotten pitch actually. And he was at pains to make it. Listen, okay, the fans haven't seen what the players are doing on the training. They're doing double sessions, loads of running, really knackering them out, just trying to build up those reserves of stamina. So when they go out there, they're tired. They're operating. They're going out onto the pitch tired already. So I think the fans should be not leaping to too many conclusions. These guys are going to be. This is a. It's the first chance for the fans to see how the team's going to look. But this is a pre-season fitness exercise. It's not about the results. It's not even about performance, really. It's about getting legs into minutes and making sure that they're ready to hit the ground running against Panathinaikos. So that's where you can make judgments. But again, it's the first night. That'll be the first 90 minutes that competitive football they've played. Yeah, there's a long season to go. We all know the importance of the first month and how it can set the tone. Financially, it's hugely important as well, but it's that setting that tone. Last year, the first month of the season, really, they didn't so much hit the ground running as sort of crashed into the pavement, and they never really recovered from that. So these early games are important, but I think there has to be given that consideration, the fact that this is a new team playing a new brand of football with new instructions. There's going to be lots of new faces we expect over the coming weeks. All that has to be taken into consideration. First impressions are important, but I think there has to be some leeway given. What would you think? Do you agree?
I feel knackered just listening to you talking about training.
No, not athlete like yourself, man. I mean, no.
I didn't. No, listen, you're right. The Bruges game, as I said before, of course we know that in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean a lot. It is a fitness exercise, and it's about getting them back in the pitch again, getting guys some minutes. There'll be loads of changes, but as I keep saying, this is Glasgow. It's the Old Firm. Bruce turn up at Ibrox and win 3-0. We'll be sitting Monday on the hotline live or Tuesday on the Record Rangers podcast, reacting to punters get off their head saying it's not good enough, need more new signings, all the rest of it. But look, that's the gig. That's what Russell Martin signed up for. It's what the Americans have signed up for, Kevin Thelwell. So I hope they're ready for it. And we'll be there on Sunday. We'll also be there next week. Burton is next week, and I'm losing track of time. Next week.
A week on Thursday we go down.
Yep, St George's Park. So we'll get a train down there. Hopefully get a few interviews, and we might need to do a podcast for down there.
Live Rangers podcast on tour.
Along with everything else we need to do.
What's the plan? We're going to be doing this every Tuesday, so
every Tuesday, yep.
And every Tuesday.
Might not definitely be me and you every week. Hopefully it will be most weeks though. Maybe even get a few guests on. Need to get into your extensive contacts book and get a few guests lined up. Need to get the wallet out.
In the back of this hanky.
Back of a fag packet. No, so listen, thanks for listening, folks. And as I say, we'll be back next Tuesday to discuss everything Rangers. Hopefully you'll join us then. Cheers. Cheers, Andy.
Cheers, boys.